Hello, this is Saeedeh, an interior architect. I'm currently working in byAR, an augmented reality company, and I am exhibition designer there. My daily duties contains designing museums in terms of physical spaces and also virtual spaces. How me as part of design team manage these projects is we design physical spaces, and we decided how to organize museums content in different levels. What are the contents comes into the space as a physical pathway. What are the objects we are going to decide as a text and environmental graphic, and what are those informations that we wanted to represent in terms of augmented reality and virtual experience for visitors to have different museum experiments in terms of having unique and emotional engagement with the spaces. I have studied interior architecture, and as an interior architecture, I have learned how to design, how to be a good experience designer in terms of physical spaces, in terms of designing like experimental centers. Even I've learned how to engage people with the space by giving them interactions to the space, and by guiding them through my story during the space. So as an interior architect, I learned how to design physical experiences. Then I heard about the term of user experience. So, but this what so-called science, I can say, was developed in IT sectors more than architecture. So I decided to co-found a user experience community back in my hometown in Iran, Shiraz. And that was how I got involved with technology, I can say. Then we held so many workshops and conferences. We invited experts from around the world, and I got introduced to the new opportunities where design and technology can be engaged and produce new and futuristic products. So that was how my interest into technology started. Then I was thinking about continuing my studies in design and technology future in Estonia. But because of the pandemic, things went in a different way. So when I got to Portugal, when I came to Portugal, I heard about my current company, byAR, and it was the projects that they are doing it's so near to the field that I wanted to continue my study in. Now I'm practicing my passion, I believe. Before I joined byAR company, I actually was curious about how virtual reality is helping people, or what are the highlighted feature for me even. Then when I started to be more engaged with museums and the way we are engaging physical space with virtual space, I understood that especially, okay, museums are so important for me because they are so educational and you can learn a lot. But when you go to museum, there is like this feeling everyone, I think we all carrying when we exit from the museum, that's something we're missing. We saw objects, we read, maybe we read through the texts provided in the museums, but you couldn't engage with the content that much. But with the help of augmented reality, we could create another layer of delivering information, which is more interactive and engageful with the visitors. So, for instance, we can recreate past with the emotion that we can add to the space. We can recreate the true space in different timelines. So and the current visitors, maybe they are not that patient to read through so many texts that classic museums are providing. But with videos, with augmented realities, with the 3Ds that we are creating, they can be more playful and they can receive more information. So I can say it's a complementary layer in a museum that we are designing, and which is really important and plays a great role in our projects. I can say there is two parts that I enjoy the most. One is when we as a design team start to create the concept, the overall idea of the specific museum. The other interesting part for me is when we start to construct the exhibitions and museums, where the idea comes to word, and you can see the construction physical layer of the exhibition, and then the environmental graphics comes to add taste to the walls, to the displays and the showcases. And the other part comes, I can say the last, is where our graphics and the augmented reality add souls to the exhibition we created, because this is also these different layers. When they are in the computer, you cannot even feel it as how they are happening in the real construction part. So for me, dealing with the construction detail and seeing the projects come true is really amazing and interesting. The most challenging part is to find the perfect engagement and connection between the physical concept that we are adding to space and how we turn or switch to the digital part of the exhibitions, which I'm still dealing with that. I can figure, I've already figured in some part, but it's still challengeful for me how to switch from the physical concept to the digital content. But it's interesting how I am developing myself from being a physical architect and creating physical experiences to the virtual and digital part. And basically by researching and reading some topics and tutorials specifically according to the projects. And also in byAR, our team contains programmers, digital artists, illustration artists, designer, and project manager. So having different specialists in a same group doing a specific project under the name of museum design. We engaged in the different topics and issues. So I gather mainly most of the information from my colleagues who are specialists in their work as well. So I upgraded myself in the digital part more than the architecture itself, and also few little details that normally are important for exhibition design in construction part, which maybe as a normal architect you're not gonna face those specific details. As an interior architect or designer who wants to design exhibitions and museums, apart from the general knowledge that we should have with the softwares like AutoCAD to draw plans and technical drawings, of course we have to know how to build a good 3D presentations for the clients. And also when you are designing museums, you really need to read through all the historical contents and the story behind the objects that museum directors will provide for you to consider them and help yourself to tell a better story through your space and to your visitors, and decide what part of the story can go virtual, what part of the story needs physical interactions, and what are the part you can deliver with the texts and the environmental graphic. So here in Portugal, I think if you know Portuguese language, it will help you more because dealing with museums, you need to know the museum languages and the specific terms they normally use to address objects and history behind them. Augmented reality in terms of designing museums and exhibition, it's a need, I believe, because there are informations that are really important and useful for different types of visitors, that with the help of augmented reality we can actually make them come to their real life in terms of the experience we create apart from the physical objects. So it's like when you go to a museum or a landmark which is almost ruined, but with the help of augmented reality you can add this digital layer and recreate and rebuild that building without touching it physically. So it is more engageful with the people to imagine and see themselves into the space and learn more about the historical layer of the museums and landmarks. I wish I had experienced more virtual exhibitions, like if I had a chance to go to like Dubai expos or any other expos which is happening around the world, because the digital layer that we are creating, it's like augmented reality part and holographic holographic essence that we are adding to the museums is already an imaginary technique. So imagining an imaginary technique, it's kind of hard for me. But if I could involve myself more to this space and pay attention to the details, how they are creating these immersive spaces with digital layers, it could have helped me more. I think one of the first and essential advice can be you have to be a designer and at the same time technology lover, if I can say. So you should not, you cannot design technology-based environment without having any interest to technology. So and since technology is a must for our generation and we cannot exist, I think everyone should improve. Any designer who wants to enter this sector, you should improve your 3D skills and also keep updating yourself with the augmented reality technology by knowing more about different types of video projections and different techniques of creating digital environments.